Daemon.
You've only ever tried to send me away to the Vale, to the City Watch. Anywhere but by your side. 10 years you've been king, and yet not once have you asked me to be your hand.
Why would I do that?
Because I'm your brother. And the blood of the dragon runs thick.
Even though I'm obviously Team Green, I still think that Daemon Targaryen is one of the best characters in the Dance of Dragons. He's one of the characters that perfectly captures exactly why people love George R. R. Martin's characterizations so much. He's morally grey, unpredictable, bold, and extremely charismatic.
You know, I'm notorious for my love of grey characters. And one of the greyest characters in the entire history of Westeros is Daemon Targaryen, the Rogue Prince. We took one of the sidebars and made a separate story out of it, the Rogue Prince. Daemon is the younger brother of King Viserys I. For a time, he was the heir to the throne when Viserys had no children. And then Viserys started having children, and he stopped being the heir to the throne. He's a notorious bad boy, a rogue in every sense of the word. He was a rival for Viserys' sister and his own niece, Rhaenyra, and then later he became the husband of Rhaenyra. He switches sides several times. You never know what side he's going to come down on. He's a very colorful and unpredictable character, and I think he has to rank up there as my favorite.
In Fire and Blood, I think that Daemon is actually a stronger character than he is on the show. He's sharper, deadlier, and more strategic. And that just makes him altogether more terrifying than show Daemon. In Fire and Blood, Daemon is a more dangerous figure because he's shrewder and more calculating, more of a long-term schemer than the hot-headed daredevil that we see on the show. Because the novel is written like a history book, we'll never truly know Daemon's true thoughts, but his actions speak volumes, even through the pages. He's consistently outwitting enemies and positioning himself in politically advantageous ways. For example, in the book, during the Dance of the Dragons, it's Daemon's idea to use Harrenhal as a strategic foothold in the Riverlands, knowing its symbolic power and tactical value. He flies in on his dragon, Caraxes, and captures Harrenhal without a fight, a cunning move that gives the Black faction a rallying point on the mainland of Westeros. On the show, this move is presented as though Daemon did it without thought.
Daemon, in the most base of ways, has a fight with his wife, gets in his car, and runs off to Harrenhal to conquer it.
However, in the book, this is a brilliant tactical decision that Daemon makes intentionally, showing that he can be very cunning and rational and not just hot-headed and rash. In fact, Daemon surprisingly comes across as the voice of reason in many occasions. He's a lot more patient and understands how to strategize politically. So during the war, he often gives Rhaenyra a lot of sage advice on how to ultimately win the war. In fact, it's his idea to use words and letters to win over the great lords to her side, advising Rhaenyra to use diplomacy first before she resorts to bloody warfare. "We must fight this war with words before we go to battle," the prince declared. The lords of the great houses held the key to victory, Daemon insisted. Their bannermen and vassals would follow where they led. After this, it's insinuated that Daemon is the one that advises Rhaenyra on how to win over the support of Lady Arryn, pointing out that she too is in a bitter conflict with her male cousins, so Rhaenyra could use that to her advantage by supporting another female ruler in the Eyrie. That's why in Fire and Blood, it says, Prince Daemon had good reason to hope that the Maid of the Vale might bring the Eyrie to their side as well. This just shows that Daemon is a lot more politically cunning in the book. He's a lot more forward-thinking and strategic. This is why he becomes such a great military commander as well, crushing Rhaenyra's enemies on the field. In this aspect, he's stronger in the books too, because on the show, even though Daemon still comes across as a fearless warrior who wins battles, he can also be very reckless as well, relying on luck and valor more than strategy. However, in Fire and Blood, he is a seasoned general and a military mastermind. His war in the Stepstones is even written into a book, presumably studied for its military and tactical strategies. Throughout those years fighting that war, Daemon wasn't just winning battles. He was also building alliances with Lord Corlys Velaryon and earning the loyalty of his men. By the time of the Dance of the Dragons, Daemon is described as the most experienced warrior of his time, having fought in multiple conflicts and even having briefly crowned himself as the king of the Stepstones after years of campaigning. This suggests that he's not just a hothead. He actually knows how to wage war with discipline. He understands logistics and strategy so well that by the time that Viserys eventually sends aid, Daemon has already broken the enemy's strongholds and secured a victory on his own terms. During the Dance of the Dragons, it's Daemon's military strategies that help the Blacks turn the tide against the Greens on many occasions. As I mentioned before, it's the reason why he's able to take Harrenhal without bloodshed, a psychological win as much as a tactical one. When he takes that castle, it actually shocks the Greens and encourages the Lords of the Riverlands to rise up for Rhaenyra. This was done intentionally by Daemon because he understands the power of symbolism, especially during war. His mere presence at Harrenhal on top of Caraxes was enough to make weaker houses surrender and inspire the common people to rally. In the book, it says that Daemon was able to call the black banners at Harrenhal, and thousands of knights and peasants alike flocked to join. I actually think that the show should have spent the second season showing how Daemon was able to accomplish that, instead of showing him having hallucinations in Harrenhal. They could have shown him having diplomatic talks, struggling to win over the common folk to his side, and using the wealth that he had inherited when he took Harrenhal to win over allies. They could have shown him gathering supplies, collecting granary, etc., etc. It would have developed Daemon's character a lot more than it did on the show, showing that he can be a brilliant military commander and a master strategist. And another thing that the show didn't present well when it comes to Daemon's character is how clever he can be in handling one-to-one confrontations with his foes. In the book, after he's finally able to lure his nephew, Aemond, into a single combat by coming alone on Dragonback, there's an exchange between the two characters that highlights Daemon's cleverness. First, Aemond boasts, "You are a fool to come alone," to which Daemon replies, "Were I not alone, you would not have come." This small exchange shows how calculated Daemon is, because we now understand that he correctly anticipated that appearing vulnerable was the only way to draw out Aemond to an open fight on his terms. This kind of strategic thinking goes against the impulsive stunts that we see on the show, like when Daemon runs into the cave by himself to kill the crab feeder, not knowing if it's a trap or if it could be ambushed inside. book-Daemon would never be so reckless. He would rather lure the crab feeder somewhere in the open, somewhere that he can fight him on his own terms. The artwork for Fire and Blood shows that Daemon likely did the same thing with the crab feeder that he did with Aemond. He left Caraxes behind in order to appear vulnerable, and then he lured the crab feeder out into the open, away from the caves, in order to fight him in single combat and finally be able to kill him. The Maesters were not exaggerating when they said that Prince Daemon was both a great man and a monster. In his day, there was not a man so admired, so beloved, and so reviled in all of Westeros. Daemon truly is dangerous in the book, not because he's reckless, but because he's unpredictable, which is not the same thing. That's why he's so hated by Otto Hightower, a man who's very methodical and organized, and who would naturally have an aversion to an agent of chaos like Daemon. It's why Otto flatly warns people that on no account can Prince Daemon be allowed to ascend to the Iron Throne. He would be a second Maegor the Cruel, or worse. Otto fears Daemon's ruthlessness so much that he would prefer Viserys to name anyone else as his heir.
Daemon would be a second Maegor, or worse. He is impulsive and violent. It is the duty of this council to protect the king and the realm from him.
On the show, this was made to seem more like a political move, but in the book, it's clear that even Daemon's allies knew that he could be very cruel. Although he campaigned with Corlys Velaryon on the Stepstones, he doesn't seem to hesitate to kill his son, Laenor. In Fire and Blood, Laenor is killed under very suspicious circumstances, and there is no secret mercy or staged escape in the book. But it is strongly implied that Daemon was involved. It would make sense for him to want to kill Laenor in order to get him out of the way and marry Rhaenyra. It's a ruthless political move that gets him closer to the Iron Throne. And the show does kind of confirm this as well, as Daemon is involved in the death of Laenor. But on House of the Dragon, there was also a compassionate twist. Daemon helps to fake Laenor's death so that he can quietly flee to Essos and be with his lover, absolving Daemon of kinslaying while allowing the audience to root for him. In a sense, this change actually makes Daemon seem less dangerous and ruthless than his book version, who wouldn't shy away from removing an inconvenient spouse to gain political power. book-Daemon's danger feels greater because George R.R. Martin isn't afraid to show him as truly lethal to anyone in his way, from unnamed criminals to high lords. Even his own family is wary of him, with Aemond once recognizing that the true danger is Daemon. Once Daemon is dead, all these fools flying our sister's banners will run and trouble us no more. In other words, Daemon is the linchpin of the Black faction and the most dangerous man on the board. At the end of the day though, I still think that both versions of the character are very entertaining. But Daemon is just a lot more compelling in the pages of Fire and Blood. He's smarter, more dangerous, more strategic, and therefore more frightening. He's not just a charismatic rogue like he is on the show. He's truly terrifying, and he lives up to his description of being the wonder and terror of his age. That's why I think that he's a better character in the novel. But what do you think? Is Daemon a better character in House of the Dragon or Fire and Blood for you? Be honest, and let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. Also, if you liked this video, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for more content in the future. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video. Peace.